At this time, I would like to introduce our special guest speaker for today, Mr. Joe Knopp. Joe was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's a producer, an actor, and known especially for producing that wonderful pro-life movie, Unplanned, in 2019, as well as I Can Only Imagine in 2018, and The Trump I Know in 2020. Joe's own childhood story is one of overcoming amazing obstacles. Today, he is married, has 3 wonderful children, and although he travels to California from time to time for work, he and his family actually live just down the road in Springboro. So we are pleased, without further ado, we are pleased to welcome Joe and his family here to hear his inspirational message. Joe.
Okay, I don't have a cheat sheet here. I'm just, as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, we can't do anything in 20 minutes, but they said I have 20 minutes to talk, so I just have my clock going here, so you know. And it's also hard for me to stand in one spot, but they said there's 2 cameras on me, so I'm gonna try really hard to hold still here. And it's also awkward to be speaking with sunglasses on, so, okay. But it's really, I appreciate everybody being out here. I'll try not to get emotional talking today, but I'm sure I will, because the reason we made this movie Unplanned, I have always been pro-life my whole life, but I'm not an activist. And I know for a fact that everyone out here, you wouldn't be out here if you weren't an activist. And we're literally standing on the front line of the war that you all are battling every day. And our desire to make this movie and to tell this story was, entertainment can be a vehicle to allow people to emotionally feel what they think they believe. And abortion, the term is used a lot, and there's a lot of jargon in the industry, pro-choice. Well, pro-choice is not the opposite of pro-life, right? Pro-death would be the opposite. So the other side was very intelligent and strategic when they chose their words. So God laid it on our heart to tell this story in the most raw, natural, real way possible. And to tell the story of a woman, Abby Johnson, who worked at a place like this for 8 years, had 2 abortions of her own. So what we know in the storytelling business is, who can argue with Abby's story? It was her. So God just placed it on our hearts, the timing of when to tell that story. Now, I can be a little slow in listening to God. I tend to need big signs in my life. So we had just come off of the movie I Can Only Imagine. And in my world, God did amazing things with that story. It did 84 million box office in the US. That wasn't me. That was just the power of that story and the power of God delivering it. But as a selfish human being, it's hard to not get pretty proud of what we did. And so when I would do speaking engagements after that, everyone would always ask, what's your next project going to be? And we had these, amazing, great stories. And I would mention, Unplanned. We have a pro-life story. Never really thought there'd be a time to commercially tell, this story. But one by one, people would come up afterwards and they would say, my passion is for life. If you ever get to that story, let me know. We would love to be a part of it, whether it's financially or supported. And I heard that enough times where I felt like I'm probably ignoring God if I don't take the next step with that story. So we did. And what God really placed on my heart was, almost like the faces of everybody that I see here is, you're here to protect life. And I'm sure many of you, I've already heard, I've only been here for 20 minutes, I've already heard stories of people who have stood on this sidewalk and have seen the children walk up 12 years later thanking the people for encouraging their mom to not have an abortion. In my life, there have been very amazing instrumental people that without them, caring about me, not one of their own, I wouldn't be here. So I want to quickly kind of share my journey and then tell more about how we did the Unplanned movie. So I was born in Philadelphia, rough part of town. I have 2 older sisters. There was a lot of abuse in our house, alcohol, drugs, lots of things that kids shouldn't be subjected to. It was very common for the police to show up on our street. One night when I was 5, they came to our house again and broke up our parents who were fighting that night. And they actually brought what I call the paddy wagon. I'm probably aging myself, but kind of the police van. And they placed our mom in the van to take her to a safe place. And it's crazy because my kids are here today, but they asked us kids, and I was 5, the police did, which parent do you want to go with? Fortunately, all 3 of us kids, we did go with our mom that night, and then to this day, never saw our dad again. Unfortunately, our mom was not really in a position to take good care of us, to raise us. So we kind of lived on the streets for the next couple of years. We would do some couch surfing, stay at some abandoned houses. I guess we call them crack houses today. But my sisters, through God's guidance, 1 block over from our block was this small corner church in Philly. And if they had 50 people on a Sunday, that was probably a pretty busy Sunday for them. But it had a big sign out front that said, if you come to Sunday school, you'll get free Dunkin' Donuts and orange juice. Somehow we figured out what Sunday school was so we could get free donuts and orange juice. So today, whenever I drive by a Dunkin' Donuts, that's always where my mind goes. But while we were there, our mom never went with us. And I'm sure we didn't dress well, didn't present well. And folks at the church started noticing us. I don't think they really said anything at the time, but the local elementary school called that church, it was in November of a year, and basically said, these 3 kids are supposed to be at school. We haven't seen them in a few weeks, but we've heard they've been at your church. Do you know their whereabouts? And this amazing gentleman named Wes Whitehead, who was a very successful architect in Philadelphia, his passion was for inner city. He was at the church. He took it, we got some more fans, he took it upon himself to literally walk the sidewalks in this area of Philadelphia to find us kids. He went in house by house, abandoned house to find us, and he did. He came across us. I just heard him tell the story not that long ago again. It was November, we had t-shirts on, we had no jackets, and he found out which one was our mom and got permission from her to take us to this orphanage. So there's an orphanage in Philadelphia. They dropped me off at a boys' dorm there. They took my sisters to a separate one. Didn't have room for all 3 of us at one place. And I was there for a year at that dorm by myself. And then when I was 8, they were able to reunite me with my sisters. And we all stayed at the orphanage until we all graduated from high school. So I got there when I was 7 and stayed till I graduated from high school. But without Wes, without him literally walking the streets, I don't know where I would be. I'm not sure if someone else would have the heart that he had to come get me. So, so when I truly look at all of you and thank you and appreciate you for being here, you don't know the story why, but there's going to be a story created down the road that someone's going to be using your face and your kindness in there as part of their story. So for me, I graduated high school, still living at the orphanage, wanted to go to college, couldn't afford it. Fortunately, God, once again, drove me by a big sign, happened to be an Air Force recruiter's office, and it said, free college if you enlist. I knew nothing about the military, knew nothing about enlisting, but I wanted college, so I literally went in, signed up, they gave me a job, they sent me to Texas for about 6 months, they put me in the hospital, and they sent me to do an internship at a place called Dayton, Ohio, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So I was 19 years old, and it's funny, I actually drove from with a friend from Texas back to Pennsylvania, bought a car, and this is before like phones and GPS and everything. I just knew that Wright-Pat was off of I-70, and I knew that I-70 came right through Pennsylvania and right through Ohio. What I did not know is there was like an 11-mile stretch of West Virginia. So I was coming through Pennsylvania and it said, welcome to West Virginia. I pulled over the first rest area, looked at the map. I thought for sure I was lost. But for those kids out there who only follow their phones, like my son now who is driving, there's a little chimney of West Virginia between the 2 states. So I got to Wright-Pat. And it worked out great. My day job was working at the hospital. I went to Wright State at night, got a finance degree, met my now wife, Angie, here in town. And her family's from here, or my family now. So I've been dating for almost 30 years now, with my 3 kids also. But after the Air Force, after getting my finance degree, I did work in finance for about 10, 12 years, mostly on my own. My buddy, who was a Hollywood film producer, called me. When I grew up at the orphanage, we went to public school and just to a local church. And Daryl was always involved in our local church. And he was my Sunday school teacher, like junior high leader, youth pastor, really went out of his way to become like a big brother to me. But Daryl had the passion to be part of Hollywood, despite our conservative church saying, you can't go to Hollywood, it's nothing but evil. He made his way. He drove out there with his wife and kid, grinded his way through Warner Brothers, became a producer for them. And then about 10, maybe 12 years ago now, he felt like God placed it on his heart to quit telling Hollywood stories and to tell our stories, to tell faith stories, inspirational stories. At the time, they were a little cheesy. Sometimes they still are today. So Daryl called me with his passion, his goal, knowing that it's going to take a lot more money to be spent on those movies. So I started flying out to LA to really to help him initially, but then I ended up switching and working with him full time in the movie space. We did a movie called Woodlawns, a football story, and then after that, that's what we did. I Can Only Imagine, and which was an amazing God story of how we even came across that story. But again, God just blew up that story, and then it took my I want to say humbling, but just obedience of listening to God through Him basically whacking me over the head with people coming forward saying that probably should be our next movie. So start working on Unplanned, and to say that it was a spiritual battle, it still is today. Actually, 3 years after the fact, the headwinds, as you all know, being out here and fighting this beast, were always against us. And if you're not careful as a Christian, as a believer, you can take a little pride in that if you're not careful that we're fighting the enemy. But the enemy knows, and it can be fierce. But God provided money in miraculous ways. I'll quickly tell the story of our actors. So because money was coming in, but not quite fast enough, but we had our timeline for starting production, just believing that God's going to bring the money in at the right time. We were late committing to our lead actress, which is kind of problematic for my crew because the wardrobe people need to know her size and everything. Hair and makeup need to get her prepared. So it wasn't until like 4 days before we were going to start filming. It was like a Thursday, I think, and we were going to film on Monday, where we finally called Ashley and we said, "Are you able to get on a plane tonight? We bought you a ticket. You got like 4 hours to tell your family goodbye and pack." So she amazingly said yes. She flew on the set. We started working with her on that Friday. She already knew the script. She was prepared. That Saturday, we're still going 100 miles an hour trying to get ready. Her mom called her and said, "Ashley, are you sitting down? I need to talk to you." And Ashley said, her mom's kind of dramatic, she said, so she just kind of went about her business saying, "What's going on, Mom?" And her mom said, "I need to tell you something." And Ashley, our actor, said, "I know, Mom, you already told me that you had an abortion before me, and that is part of my passion for being out here. I want the world to know how it has hurt you, how it has hurt my sibling, that they're not here." So that is part of Ashley's passion for telling this story. And Ashley's mom kind of got quiet and said, "That's not what I want to tell you. What I want to tell you is, when I found out I was pregnant with you, I made an appointment at the abortion clinic also. And then I went to my appointment, and I sat in the front chair, and they called my name back, and I went to the procedure room, and I put my gown on, and I laid down on the procedure table, ready to have an abortion. When the nurse walks through the door with the doctor, the nurse was about 8 months pregnant, and when she looked over on her bed, and her face was right at the belly of that pregnant nurse, Ashley's mom right then got up off of the table and left the abortion clinic. And now, and 32 years later, Ashley's face is the poster.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Sorry, my phone's trying to help out here. 32 years later, Ashley's face, it's literally the face of the Unplanned poster. So it's just amazing how God prepared 30-some years before for Ashley to be our lead actress. So as a selfish producer, when I heard that story, I'm like, well, at least we got the right actress. There's no way God's giving us that story and giving us Ashley without having the right actress. So then we were just kind of cranking through production, and it was amazing. It was difficult. Mike Lindell helped out. He financially helped out. He came out and acted for a day, who was probably the most distraction we ever had on a movie set. My Pillow. Everybody knows Mike's face. He's done an amazing job of marketing. So I literally had to rip him off the set one night because everybody was coming to him and we were trying to film. So I got him in the car, and I just wanted to move him to our internal set just to get him away from, we were going to do that big scene at the end where he had like 600 extras. We were preparing for that. So I took Mike away from everybody. And this is a great Mike story. It's like 8 o'clock at night on a Friday night, and I'm driving him around. He said, Joe, how many people are going to be here tomorrow? And he said, I really want to do something special for them. I'm like, probably about close to 1,000 people. He's like, great. He gets on the phone. It's Friday night. He calls like Bob back in Minnesota at the factory. Says, Bob, are you at work? Are you at the factory? And the guy, I could tell the guy was like at home, probably with his family. And Mike's like, hey, I need a tractor trailer load of pillows here on set tomorrow. And the guy's like, where are you at? He's like, I'm in Oklahoma City. Anyway, sure enough, Mike had it so the next day, halfway through filming, I remember the truck coming by, a tractor trailer came and gave everyone who was helping out on that set a pillow. And Mike actually handed them all out himself. It was great. But it was probably just Mike's passion. So when you see him on TV, that is who he is. His passion is definitely for life and for the conservative issues. The other thing with Unplanned is, when do you release that type of movie? So we had narrowed it down to, it was like March of, I think 2019, if I remember correctly. That January, we literally, we finalized our date. And that night on the evening news, New York City lit up their skyline after passing the most progressive abortion law this country has ever seen. At the same time in the news, Virginia was trying to pass, they call it abortion, a law where 72 hours after the baby being born, that you could still, in their minds, abort the baby. So we got caught up in this whirlwind, this swirl of what was happening in this country, which was totally God's timing. We got invited to, I want to say like 12 different capitals to show the movie before they were passing their law. I got a phone call from the White House, from the Vice President's office, and I live here in Springville. I live here with you guys, so I don't get phone calls from the White House. And it was an assistant saying, Vice President Pence and Mrs. Pence would like to watch Unplanned on Sunday night and then meet with you on Monday morning. Is there a way for you to get them a copy of the movie? So it's pretty funny. We don't hand out like DVDs of our movies before we release it. It's too dangerous. All I can do is like email. It's kind of like one of those Mission Impossible things where you email it out. After they watch it, it blows up at like 5 seconds later and no one else can watch it. So I had to explain to the Vice President's team, that's all I can do. So the Vice President actually was on the other line and said, unfortunately, his White House email, it doesn't receive links. So that's not an option. So he gave me his wife's Gmail account. So then I had to like, Dear Mrs. Pence, I'm sending you a copy of our movie. But then I got to meet with him that Monday morning at the White House. It was pretty cool. He asked if I've ever been there before, and I said no. He said, can I give you a tour of the West Wing? So Vice President Pence gave me a tour of the West Wing, which is very special. But he sat me down in his office and he said, Joe, just like you and I are sitting down today, 20-some years ago, when I decided to get into politics, my wife and I sat down with our kids, and we explained to them that there's one reason why we're willing to risk our lives and go into politics, and that is for life, the issue of life. So he has been a really strong advocate for life since the beginning. Amazingly, he teamed up with a president that was also probably the most pro-life president we have ever had. The first one to ever attend the March for Life in DC. So for me, like I started out, I was never an extreme activist in the pro-life world, but what I have learned is, in my life, because of my story and my journey, I have had this incredible desire to belong. And I spent a lot of time, probably should have done it in counseling, but I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what my drives had been in life. And, the way God has designed us, only He can ultimately fulfill us. And then family is definitely the second layer, and then community is the third layer. So many people don't know enough about God, and when they don't have family, they start looking in all the wrong places to belong. And unfortunately, a lot of the women, a lot of the boys and girls who have entered the facility behind me or have felt the need to enter here, they got into position to have an unwanted pregnancy because they just felt like they didn't belong anywhere else. And maybe, being with a guy or girl would be that opportunity to belong somewhere. So I want to encourage everybody here, and I tell my kids all the time, and I hope they listen to me most of the time, that as a community, when we have folks who are not getting love and the hope that they need and the desire to belong from God as far as they know, from their family, we have to pick up the pieces. So everyone here, as you're here and you're praying, that's what we're praying for. We're praying that they know that there's hope beyond letting go of their baby and aborting and killing their baby. So I just want to encourage everybody here that there's a lot of hurting people in this city, in this town, in this state, in this country, and in this world that need our prayers. And however we can reach out, whatever we can do, just like you're here today, we have to. God requires it from us. So I really thank you that you're all here. It is so amazing and honored to be literally on the front line. That's why we wanted to tell this story. And I'll be here as long as people are afterwards. If anybody had any questions or about what we were able to do. So thanks for your time.